When you're getting started in long range, there's some basic equipment that you're going to need. Some of this is just nice to have, but some is absolutely critical depending on your circumstances. Whether you're a beginner or experienced marksman, having the right gear can make all the difference in hitting your target. My goal for you is that at the end of this video, you should have some idea of where you can start to have success on your first trip out to distance. The first thing you need is a platform that's capable of 1 MOA. I really don't care what caliber. The caliber will determine how easy it is and how far you can reliably hit your target. You may already have a safe queen that is perfectly capable of getting started, as long as it's capable of 1 MOA. Ideally, higher ballistic coefficient options are desirable, but they need to be able to attain at least 1 MOA if that's the size of your target out at distance. Right now I'm working on setting up an older 30-06, so some of the calculations I'm going to show you are based on it. The second most important piece of equipment that you're going to need is the scope that has mechanical turrets capable of dialing windage and elevation. Well, there are too many options to count when it comes to scopes, and if you want to dump some serious money on an optic, I'm not going to tell you not to. But one of the best bang for your buck options that I know of that has excellent customer service behind it is the Vortex Venom 5x25. Whether it's just to get started or to use for a very long time, I think this is going to be a great option. There are several reasons that this is my starter recommendation. This is the second one that I have purchased, and I have 2 friends that have bought between them 3 of them, and so far they have no complaints. For the price, the clarity is very good. It's first focal plane, which if you're going to be using the holdover reticle, that is a must. It also has a 0 stop. I can go on for quite a while. This particular one is in mil, not MOA, but if you're more comfortable with MOA, they have a version for that as well. The amount of vertical adjustment it has is 25 mils, but keep in mind that is total adjustment. So you might only have half of that available, maybe a little bit less. Meaning that if the optic is zeroed at 100 yards, it had to be exactly in the middle, and likely it won't be. So you'll only be able to use half of that adjustment, so 12.5 mils. To get to 1,000 yards with a 6.5 Creedmoor, you're only going to be able to need somewhere around 8.5 mils of dial. The 30-06 load I'm working on is a little bit closer to 10.5 mils at 1,000 yards. Ideally, you don't want to be right at the limits of your turrets either, so depending on how far your target is away will determine what you're going to need to do here. Adding a scope base or a mount that has some sort of elevation in it might be ideal, but this scope also has a Christmas tree reticle inside, so that should allow you to use it to hold over because it's a first focal plane scope. To get a rough idea of how much elevation you might need, there are free ballistic calculators out there that are going to give you the approximate elevation that you're going to need to succeed. I've used several. I hear that geoballistics is free and pretty good, but there's no shortage of calculators out there that should give you all the information that you need. The third critical piece that you're going to need are rings. It doesn't matter how much you spend on your scope if you mount it with shoelaces. You want to have less of a problem to fight with? Spend a little bit more money on your scope rings. The Vortex Pro Series has worked pretty good so far, and it's pretty much the bottom of where I think you should start. They are kind of neat because people like me that can't remember the torque spec they're supposed to be running with, they're actually written on the ring themselves. I've owned several sets of these Seekin rings, which are basically identical to the Vortex PMR rings, but they are about double the price. But again, they've worked very well for me. For this 30-06 project, because I'm going to be able to want to move it from platform to platform with minimal effort, I decided to try out these American Rifle Company scope mounts. I've already used a set of their regular rings to tame the scope for moving on the 30-06, and they've done everything that I've asked them to. I've also had good luck from the scope mounts from Spur, but these American Rifle Companies are a couple $100 less, so I'm happy to try them out. Let your budget decide what works best for you, but you need to have scope rings that are going to keep your zero from shifting, or your day at the range is not going to be very much fun. So far I probably haven't ruffled many feathers, but this is where it's going to stop. Do yourself a favor, unless you're a superhero, get a level. The further you are away from your target, the more you're going to need the level. Yes, you will need to set it up correctly and validate it with a tall target test. But the quote I remember is something about a human eye can distinguish somewhere around 3 degrees, which is going to be the reason that you miss in some circumstances. No, this video is not sponsored by Vortex, but their Pro level has all the corners rounded and it's going to get the job done. Yes, there are others. Pick whichever one you like. I really like the scope levels from MDT because they're very obvious to read and they respond very quickly. But they do run around $230. Several people have made fun of me for picking these up and trying them out. But once they've tried it out, they immediately understood why and asked where I got it. The answer? Our channel sponsor, Midway USA, where I pick up pretty much all of the stuff we're talking about today. Now that we've got a platform put together, we need to make it stable. And a reasonable bipod is a good place to start. This Harris has done very well for me. Caldwell has a knockoff of it for around $40. But if you'd like to step up to something like a real Atlas, you probably won't be disappointed either. But the $40 Caldwell can easily get you started. Another critical item that you're going to need is a rear bag. The Tab Gear rear bag is probably more versatile than you will first realize. It will help you get stable, stay on target, and see your impact. If you prefer another, that's fine. But in my opinion, this is a very good all-around bag. I personally consider all of the items we went over so far to be required. Now, depending on what ranges you have available and how they are set up, a good investment might also be something like a shooting mat. It's way more comfortable than laying on the ground. If you're engaging targets at distances that are unknown, a rangefinder is something that might be nice to have. This particular one I got with a promotion with the scope, but I'm sure that's over by now. It's only limited to deer-sized targets at 700, so to shoot out to 1,000, it's not going to work. So I'm going to be sticking with my SIG Kilo 2000 for the moment. Probably use this one for hunting. But if you know all the distances to all of your targets, it might be something you don't need to get started. The range close to me has targets every 100 yards, so it's not like you need a rangefinder. I alluded to it before, but a ballistic calculator is something very nice to have if you're just starting out. Now, if you're using a Hornady projectile, they have a ballistic calculator on their website that is very usable. I've heard of another app called GeoBallistics. I've used it a little bit, not a whole lot, but it's probably an option as well. I will mention that if you don't have a chronograph, you need to understand the velocity on the box, or the estimated velocity in your load data might not be exactly what you think it is. Expect to need some corrections and take a notebook down so you can write down what you find your drops actually are. After you've got your equipment and set up correctly, you should be ready to go to have a great day at the range. But just to make sure, check out this video right here where I went over the top 5 mistakes that I witnessed at a long-range class that I took. If you'd like to see a quick article where I cover the equipment that you need for long range in a little bit more detail, check out my ambassador page at Midway USA. I hope your first day out at long range is a huge success, and thanks for watching.